Hello, and welcome back to Season 2 of the Climate Career Kit. I am your host, Aishani Garg. Today, I am joined with Sotiria Anagnostou, a Strategy Director in Corporate Sustainability. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat with you about some of the work that I do.
So, to start us off, I understand that you work a lot with ESGs and sustainability, specifically in business. What does that look for you exactly? What types of companies do you work for, and what do you do for them?
So, yes, I've always worked in corporate sustainability and ESG. I've worked for a number of different corporations and different industries. I currently work for BWD, a strategic sustainability consultancy where we partner with large corporations to help develop their ESG and sustainability strategy. We also support them with corporate reporting around these initiatives, and then also on how to implement some of the actions that help them talk about the things that they do around sustainability and what that looks like. Prior, I worked for a few different industries in this type of work. So I worked for a large asset management firm called Federated Hermes, where I was working to integrate ESG across their different asset classes. And ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And it's typically the metrics and the way that we talk about the performance that a company has in their corporate sustainability initiatives. So they go hand in hand. They're slightly different, but they go hand in hand and they partner together. So ESG is more of like the way that we track the type of corporate sustainability work that happens.
For sure. It's really interesting to see a person in a sustainability role in a company that doesn't necessarily focus on that. So, what does an everyday look like for you? So, what types of things do you do each day?
Yes, that's a good point. So I usually am at a company that's doing something else. They're manufacturing a chemical or they're doing financial services. And so I come in as an additional component and work on some of those things. So a lot of my time is spent really integrating a sustainable lens or mindset into the different teams and the type of work that they do. It does make the days pretty varied and interesting. So I could go anywhere from starting the morning in a marketing and communications meeting to then spending the afternoon, like when I was working in manufacturing, at one of the manufacturing facilities where I'm working with the energy managers to try to find ways to reduce emissions or trying to collect data from those places too. There's also a decent amount of engagement with the executive team to make sure that the sustainability strategy aligns well with the corporation. So the day can be varied, and it allows me the ability to think strategically about who I'm communicating with and how, and kind of stretch a lot of the skills that I need to be able to work with those teams.
No, that for sure makes sense. So, going back a little bit, when did you first become interested in sustainability or climate science? Did you know going into college that this is what you wanted to do?
I knew during high school that I liked international relations and I was really interested in politics and how things got pushed forward from the policy and governance perspective, but I didn't really know much about environmental issues. So my freshman year of college, I took a semester and went on an Outward Bound course, which is like an outdoor education leadership style program. And during that time, I was really faced with this understanding of like complex corporate systems and their impact on the environment that I was spending a lot of time thinking about and doing. And so when I started acknowledge that that was an issue, I thought, okay, this is probably going to be a big issue in my lifetime, and it makes sense to start working on it now. So by the time I came back from that program, I was looking for an environmental studies program so that I could focus on how the environmental issues really, partnered or interacted with society and corporations and governance. So it was a merger between kind of the hard sciences of climate science and environmental studies with, some of these other factors in society that are really important to people and the cultures and societies that we live in. So I think from that early stage had to build my own major. This wasn't something that really was sufficiently thought about in an academic setting. Really tried to build in a lot of different courses so that I could get a well-rounded understanding of this. But I have been focused on this for a long time. So I did my bachelor's in political science and environmental studies, then did a master's in energy and environmental analysis, and then continued into a PhD where I was really, really solidly focused on climate science, how it impacts different parts of society and communities and locations, and then what processes that we need to think about that are going to get altered and shifted as climate change happens. So it's definitely been something that I've thought about throughout my whole academic career and wanted to build up this ability to be able to think strategically from lots of different perspectives on how to solve these challenges. I think that's one way to tackle and come into climate is kind of have that long academic journey to get there. But the things we need are varied and diverse. So there's lots of opportunity to study something differently, but then make sure it applies to how climate change is impacting people and how people are, impacting climate change or the environments that we live and work in. So for me, it was something that I've always been focused on. I've kind of shifted gears on the perspective or the topics within that, but I think it's something that hits on all of us all the time. And so there's a lot of opportunity to tackle it from whatever lens or angle you like. And so I'm excited to see the momentum and how many people can get involved.
Yeah, of course. I can relate to the interest in like the policy and the international relations side of sustainability. So I am excited to see where that takes me. But what opportunities did you get in college or right outside of college that you think jump started your career? Like what types of things helped to get you where you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think there's so many different factors that play into it. And over a course of a career and an academic career and then your work career are long. All of a sudden for a year or two, you're at this job that's doing one thing, and then you maybe switch to another company that has new mentors, new topics, new resources available to you. Finding my first job was a little tricky after my PhD, making sure I could translate all of that academic work I did into something that seemed very business relevant. At the time, there were limited resources for helping you translate that information too, and that's kind of an evolving space. There's a lot of opportunity now, um, but I think some of the early things too, like once I did get that corporate job, I was introduced to our industry association for that particular company. I was working at Whirlpool Corporation at the time, which makes KitchenAid and Maytag, like the large appliances. And so I was introduced to our industry association, and I really had no idea what this meant ahead of time. I had no idea that this was like a thing that happened or like what their main purpose was. But after seeing that and understanding that, all of these manufacturers that do the same thing kind of have an industry association that supports them and can build things momentum for them and is a place where they can come together and discuss big industry topics, was really helpful for me because then they also had, a sustainability component of that. So how are other sustainability people at other competing companies or similar industries, you have a place where you can talk to them about what kind of things, what challenges they've had. And so some of the biggest learnings I've had is like engaging with the industry association for whatever company that I'm working for and finding colleagues and peers kind of from that way to bounce some of these ideas from and learn from and network with. So I think those are always, for early career folks, those are really helpful. And then even before that, though, which is not something I did a lot of, but now that I'm more seasoned in my career, I see a lot of younger people reaching out to me to ask questions about the type of work I do. And I would strongly recommend it. I think most professionals would be very happy to have a conversation and provide support and mentorship. I didn't really know people did that when I was younger, so I didn't really do that, but I would now, and that would be the recommendation that I would make is to reach out and try to find out information I can as early as I can.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I didn't realize that those industry associations like worked in sustainability and that's how that works. So that's really interesting. And I definitely reach out to a lot of people through the podcast and I've learned a ton. So I would definitely recommend reaching out to people through LinkedIn or email or any kind of form of communication that you can find because it's super helpful. So moving on to our last question. What advice do you have for a high school student who is interested in pursuing sustainability or like what kinds of opportunities can they take advantage of right now in high school?
Yeah. I think that's it's really important because I think being able to think through some of these things and kind of build your high school and collegiate academics around something that helps you get where you're going is really great. And sustainability and climate issues are fairly new, so they're not always integrated into the academics that we have. You might have to pull some of those things in yourself. So I think keeping, just like I do in the corporate setting, keeping a sustainable or climate lens through all of your classes, even if you're in an English, English lit course, think about some of the themes that come up in your readings and the way that you talk about things and see if there's connections there. You can also do a quick Google search on a book that you might be reading in English lit and how it connects to climate change. There will be topics on there. So I think keeping that lens, no matter what you're doing, is really great. Um, Something I think we talked about too was there's a lot of conferences around sustainability, corporate sustainability or climate tech. And these conferences are, number one, they're expensive and they're definitely geared towards corporate professionals or professionals in general. But there are opportunities to join them as students as well. So they will offer scholarships to students so that they can come and get a view of what's going on here. They also offer volunteer positions. So you can attend you might volunteer, you might take notes at a few sessions or help people get registered, but then you're also then able to go to the conference the rest of the time and network or kind of get a lens and see what's going on. So I think doing a search for sustainability conferences and seeing where they're located and seeing if they're close to some of your listeners and they can just don't have to fly there, but might be in their backyard. For instance, I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and one of the biggest conferences is called Green Biz, and the company is called Green Biz that sponsors it, but it's their flagship conference called Green Biz as well. And that's just right down the street. So if you were local, went to Arizona State University or a local high school, you could volunteer and then come to the conference. They also have a sister event that is called Verge, and it's specifically for climate tech, and that's in the Bay Area. So that's another great opportunity for people to come and kind of get a look around. They hold another conference in New York City in the summertime. So I think just doing a search on climate or sustainability conferences and then kind of thinking through how can I volunteer, how can I get involved is a really good first step for networking and also learning about the topics and how they apply to corporate or tech or different industries too.
Yeah, of course. Those opportunities are amazing. And I will be linking all of the conferences that she mentioned on my website right next to this episode. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I really appreciate your time. And to all the listeners, tune in to the next episode of the Climate Career Kit. Thank you so much.
Thank you.